Selective entry high schools are becoming more and more popular every single year with more people applying for them. But you might be wondering, well, why are they so popular? And what's it like to actually study at a selective high school? And so in this video, I'm going to answer both of those questions. And I'll start by sharing a little bit about my experience of going to a selective entry high school. So before I went to a selective entry high school, I'd always been about average in my class, maybe a little bit above it. I wasn't right at the top. I'd never been signaled out as being gifted and talented or exceptionally high achieving, but I also wasn't near the bottom of my class. I was probably a little bit above average. And when I got into a selective entry high school, I kind of wondered how I would go. I wondered, would I be right at the bottom because I wasn't really someone who was really gifted and talented? But surprisingly, I was about average as well. I was a little bit above average in some classes, a little bit below average in some, and that continued all the way throughout high school, even in year 12. Fast forward to when I got my year 12 results back. How does someone who's a little bit above average at a selective entry high school actually go at the end of year 12? Well, the ATAR score I got was 97.65, which means I was in about the top 2.4% of students in the state. So even though I was only a little bit above average in the high school that I was at, I was still in the top 2% of students in the state. And this definitely would not have been possible for me if I was at a public school. I knew other students who I was friends with in primary school who went to public schools in my local area. They were similar to me when I was studying with them. But in year 12, they were just a little bit above average as well. And rather than getting a 98, they got an 80 or an 85. And I don't really think there was much difference between them or me in terms of our IQ or the way we thought about school and our natural talent and intellect. I think a large part of that, the difference between our scores, was the environment we're in. I was in a selective school where being average was 98, whereas they were in a public school where being average was 75 or 80. And so that's really one of the major reasons why I'm personally passionate about helping people get into selective high schools, because being in that environment probably was the difference between me being able to get into law, which was the degree I was hoping to get into, compared to not being able to get into any of these degrees. Because if you look at why do people really care about ATAR scores, why are we talking about scores at the end of year 12? It's because for the universities in Australia, but also overseas, how your child performs in year 12 and the ATAR score they receive is really the number one factor that determines what university options they have. So if you have a look at this here, you can see medicine. To get into medicine, you need an ATAR of about 99, which means you need to be in about the top 1% of students in the state. For law, which is what I got into, needs to be around 98. For biomedicine and commerce, it needs to be around 95. For engineering or computer science is a really another one that's really popular now. It's about 90 to 92. And so you can see if you want to get into one of these really top universities, you need a high ATAR score. And if you want to get a high ATAR score, then it's easier to get one of them if you're at a selective entry school. For example, this here is a bit of an indication of the median ATAR score by school type. So for example, the median public school has an average ATAR or a median ATAR of about 50 to 70. So it means the average student at one of these schools is about average in the state, which is what you would expect. Now, private schools typically do perform a little bit better than public schools. Their median ATAR is typically around 75 to 80. Yes, there is definitely some that are higher than this, but if you look at all the private schools on average, their average or their median ATAR score is generally about 75 to 80. The selective high schools, on the other hand, they are significantly higher. So their median ATAR score is anywhere from 90 to 95. So for example, the median at the school that I went to in my year was actually around 96. So it was extremely high. And so this really is why these schools are so popular, not just because they set your child up with a really strong education all the way throughout high school, but also it's a bit of a fast track into these top degrees. Both if you want to study these within Australia, but also if you're thinking about studying at a university like Harvard or Oxford or Yale or Stanford or MIT, these really prestigious universities overseas, they're options that open up to you if you have a high ATAR score. And so this really is the reason why more and more students are applying for selective entry high schools every single year, because they're a fast track to these top university degrees. Now, if you want to give your child the best possible chance of getting into one of these selective entry high schools, then you're welcome to book a call with us below, where we can have a look at your child, see how they're currently going in school, and create a plan to help them excel on the exam, which is generally the number one factor that determines if they'll be able to get into one of these schools. Otherwise, on this channel, I'm posting a lot more resources as well, both on how the admissions process actually works for getting into selective entry high schools, but also on the specific sections on these exams and how to excel on them as well. So you're welcome to watch all of them. They'll provide a lot of value to you and your child as well. So good luck. I hope to hear of your child getting into a selective entry high school. And even if they don't get in, a lot of people find that preparing for these exams boosts their school grades pretty significantly as well, which is a nice side benefit. So good luck. Look forward to hearing of your success.